Good morning to all the devoted listeners of Hot Topic and Fresh News. Today is November 27, 2023, and we're here with some crucial headlines. Israel and Hamas are nearing the end of a temporary 4-day halt in combat, a grace period that humanitarian groups are eager to extend for aid provision in the ravaged Gaza region. Qatar and Egypt, the critical mediators in this conflict, have received promising signals that the pause may be extended conditional on the release of more Israeli hostages by Hamas. Meanwhile, back home in Israel, it's a somber mood, with the consensus being that peace is still out of reach. As Israelis rejoice in the release of the first clusters of local hostages, it's clear that the battle to dismantle Hamas is far from over. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant warns that future negotiations will happen under fire. As the conflict escalates, the devastation is alarming. More than 13,000 Palestinians are reported dead in less than 2 months of war, leaving Gaza City in ruins. International outcry grows, but Israel appears undeterred, with over 90% of Jewish Israelis backing the dual objectives of crushing Hamas and rescuing the hostages. We'll delve deeper into these topics and more right after this break. Hey, everyone! This is your host, Emily, coming to you live from New York City.
And this is David, tuning in from San Francisco.
As always, we're here on Hot Topic and Fresh News, serving up the latest news round the clock. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Now, straight to the hot topics.
So, the current situation between Israel and Hamas is quite tense. Can we expect any significant developments in the near future?
It's a very volatile situation. Even though there's a temporary pause in combat, it's clear that Israel sees this as a short-lived respite, not a move towards peace.
It's reported that humanitarian groups are pleading for more time to provide aid to Gaza. How's the situation on the ground?
The devastation is immense, with much of Gaza in ruins. They desperately need more time to provide aid, particularly in southern Gaza, where hundreds of thousands of families are currently sheltering.
There's talk of extending the pause, contingent on the release of additional Israeli hostages. How realistic is that?
It's a delicate balance. While Hamas has expressed a desire to extend the pause and increase the number of hostages released, it's contingent on a multitude of factors.
President Biden seems hopeful that the deal could grow. Is this optimism shared by the Israelis?
Not quite. In Israel, the consensus is clear: they don't see peace as an immediate outcome. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has even stated that further negotiations will occur under fire.
And what about the public sentiment in Israel amidst these developments?
Israelis are realistic. They're celebrating the release of hostages, but understand that the war to eliminate Hamas is far from over. There's strong public backing for the ongoing conflict, with an emphasis on crushing Hamas and rescuing the hostages.
So, what can we expect next?
Once the hostage release deal is complete, Israel plans to resume combat operations, even if the pause is extended. It seems the Israeli military is already preparing for the next phase, and they anticipate that Hamas is doing the same.
It seems the situation is evolving quite rapidly. Could you shed some light on the significance of the role of Qatar and Egypt in this scenario?
Definitely. Qatar and Egypt are key regional mediators. They've been working to facilitate the peace process and have recently received positive indicators that the cessation of violence could be extended. Their diplomatic efforts could potentially lead to a more prolonged halt in hostilities.
What's the potential impact of the hostage release deal on the overall situation?
The hostage release deal is a significant factor. If completed successfully, it could bring some temporary relief. However, combat operations are expected to resume once the deal is finalized. The Israeli army already has plans to return to attacking Gaza to dismantle Hamas.
Tell us something interesting about the geopolitical dynamics at play here.
Here's something worth noting: while this conflict is primarily between Israel and Hamas, it has wider implications. What many might not know is that the Gaza Strip, where the conflict is centered, is only about 25 miles long and 7 miles wide. Despite its relatively small size, the political, humanitarian, and security stakes are incredibly high, drawing international attention and diplomatic efforts.
So, what's the overall outlook?
Well, the situation is dynamic and uncertain. While there's hope for an extended pause in combat, the underlying issues remain unresolved. The road to peace is still a long one, and the world will be watching closely.
So, the reprisal that Israel faces on an international level due to the high casualties and humanitarian crisis, does it seem to be affecting its leadership's stance?
Publicly, it doesn't seem to be. The Israeli leadership appears undeterred by the international outcry over the humanitarian crisis. Even the pause in fighting hasn't led to any open dissent within the emergency government.
But what about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? How is he managing this crisis?
Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it clear that the pause in fighting doesn't equate to lasting peace. He, alongside other politicians, has been celebrating the reunification of hostages with their families while simultaneously advocating for a resumption of combat operations.
What's the general sentiment among Israelis regarding the war and the hostage situation?
The public backing for the war has remained high. A recent poll indicates that over 90% of Jewish Israelis support the twin goals of crushing Hamas and saving the hostages. Interestingly, when asked to prioritize, more Israelis chose releasing all the hostages over toppling Hamas.
Does this mean that Israelis are ready for the war to end?
Not necessarily. While most Israelis support extending the pause to rescue as many captives as possible, this doesn't imply a desire for the war to end. The prevailing view is that there can't be security or peaceful relations with Palestinians without eliminating Hamas. This mindset supports the continuation of ground operations.
There have been some hiccups in the hostage exchange deal. How has this affected Israel's trust in Hamas?
The chaotic events of the second day of the captive exchange deal have only deepened Israel's distrust of Hamas. When 13 Israelis were due to be released to the International Committee of the Red Cross, Hamas delayed the operation, accusing Israel of violating the agreement's terms. Although regional mediators eventually resolved the issue, the incident has contributed to a sense of mistrust.
And how has this impacted the fragile truce and prospects for a diplomatic solution?
Aid groups and Israel's allies believe the shaky truce is a good starting point and could form the basis for a long-lasting diplomatic solution. However, the call to stop fighting has had little resonance within Israel itself. The prevalent sentiment within the country is that the war is set to resume.
So, despite the brief respite, the situation remains quite volatile.
Exactly. While there's a nominal pause in the fighting and some hostages have been released without incident, the situation remains tense and uncertain. Both Israel and Hamas are expressing an openness to extending the pause, but it remains to be seen how events will unfold. Thanks for joining us today on Hot Topic in Fresh News. We delved deep into today's top news stories. Your attention and engagement mean the world to us, so don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell to stay up to date with all our episodes. Share your thoughts in the comment section below and spread our channel among your circles, whether that's on social media or around the dinner table.
And remember, we're here every day to make sure you're always informed and entertained. You never know what's coming next, so you don't want to miss out.
We're so grateful for your time and support. We can't wait to bring you more insightful analysis in our next episode.
Absolutely, it's going to be a blast. Both, stay in the loop, keep your eyes on the news, our channel's content will amuse.